Hi, you're welcome to The Conversation with Sola Adesoye. My name is Aonduna Ingia, and I'll be taking his place on the program today. Do you have your PVC? Are you aware of the number of political or presidential candidates we have, or political parties we even have going into the elections next year in 2023? These are pertinent questions Nigerians are asking, and of course has fueled the discourse in recent times. It appears more than ever Nigerians have become even more invested into the issue of the 2023 general elections, and as a result of that, the frequent question or the conversation of voter registration, picking up PVCs and all of that has come up. Just recently we had an election in Ekiti State. There was an election in Ekiti State. Of course, it was adjudged to be successful, and that of course was probably because of the level of enlightenment that was carried out by the umpire body, talking about INEC. Well, today on the program, we're going to be looking at a very, very important topic that, of course, will set a beam light on some of these salient issues as regards the issue of voter registration and, of course, voter participation of Nigerians in the electoral process as well. We're looking at the topic today: voter literacy and citizens' responsibility, exercising your civic rights as a Nigerian. And we're going to be talking to someone who has been traveling the length and breadth of this country to ensure that Nigerians are properly informed as far as the elections is concerned. On the conversation today, it promises to be exciting, it promises to be educative. So I implore you to stick around as we go on this short break. We'll be right back.
The Conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds around the world, and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation on the social media channels showing on your screen.
Welcome back. It is The Conversation, and we're looking at the topic voter literacy and citizens' responsibility, exercising your civic rights as a Nigerian. Our guest today on the program, it has been a difficult chase, but we succeeded eventually, and he's no other person but Festus Okoye, Esquire. He's the INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. Thank you so much, Mr. Festus Okoye, for having this time with us.
Thank you so much.
Yes. We're speaking a short while ago, and I must tell you outrightly that I don't envy you at all, considering the fact that you're one of the most traveled Nigerians currently as it stands. But how, when you look at all that has been happening building up to the elections next year, I want to start by asking, how do you rate the Commission? Because with every election, there are challenges, and as we proceed, it seems as though you are overcoming those challenges. But I'd like to hear from you. How would you rate the Commission so far?
Well, in the Commission, we plan every election, and we plan every activity. As far as the Commission is concerned, there is no activity so small other than to be planned. And so we plan every activity. We started planning for the 2023 election immediately after the conclusion of the 2019 general election. This is because we learn from our past. We learn from what we have done well. We learn from what we have not done well. And then we project towards the future. So immediately after the 2019 general election, we did what we call both internal and external review of the election. In terms of our own internal review, we got together all our electoral officers in the 774 local government areas of Nigeria. We also got together all our resident electoral commissioners in the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. And we did brainstorm. And also, we also invited some of our collation officers and returning officers who participated in one way or the other in the electoral process for review. And then the moment we finished with our own internal review, we also did what we call the external review by inviting political parties, civil society groups and organizations, the media, and other critical stakeholders for them to tell us how we perform, what we did well and what we did not do well, what we need to change and what we don't need to change. And that's exactly the way we have proceeded over the years. For this present period, we've gone very, very far in terms of our preparations. The modus operandi here is for us to introduce technology in our electoral process to obviate what we call pernicious human interference in the electoral process. Okay. We believe that with more technology, we can get certain things right. But we also recognize the fact that technology does not conduct elections and that human beings do conduct elections. So we want to drive technology. We don't want the technology to drive the commission. So it was based on this that we decided that part of the things we are going to do in order to bring some level of integrity to the electoral process is, one, to improve the deployment of staff and materials on election day. Two, to change the dynamics and the template of accreditation process. And three, to also rework our result transmission process and procedure in order to make it much more transparent and also re-engage the Nigerian people back to the electoral process. So these are the things we have decided to put in place. I believe that with the way we are going, with every election we keep on improving. We are not where we want to be, but we'll keep on improving with every election. And hopefully, with the way we are going, we presume and we project that the 2023 general election will be free, fair, transparent, credible, and inclusive.
You know, most people will still argue the issue of transparency as far as Nigerian elections are concerned, because drawing an example from the Ekiti gubernatorial elections, there have been widespread allegations about vote buying and what have you. And now one will begin to wonder, is it a function of INEC in putting a control on that, or forestalling the issue of that, or is it a function of the politicians? Where do we actually ascribe the blame? Because at the end of the day, when people cry foul as far as vote buying is concerned, it smears the integrity of the commission. So what exactly is INEC doing in that regard as well? Remember, you have the Osun election coming up as well.
Yes. Well, we want Nigerians to rate the commission. We want Nigerians to judge the commission. We want the Nigerians to evaluate the commission based on our own processes and based on our own procedures, and also based on the functions and powers given to the commission by the Constitution. Constitutionally, the remit of the commission is to organize, undertake, and supervise elections. That's the main remit. The second remit is to conduct registration of persons who are qualified to vote. Then we have also been given the power to register political parties and provide rules and guidelines for their operation. And then we have been also given the power under the Electoral Act 2022 to organize civic and voter education. These are the things that we've been asked to do. In relation to the Ekiti governorship election, almost all the civil society groups and organizations, including the political parties, including international observers, agreed that almost all the polling units in Ekiti State opened on time. Not only that, they also agreed that the beavers, which we use for verification of the voters, performed optimally. They also agreed that we transmitted the election results on time. In other words, before 8 p.m. on election day, that is on the 18th day of June 2022, over 94% of the results had already come in through our INEC result viewing portal. So we want Nigerians to judge and rate the commission based on our processes and procedures. Yes, there have been cries and there have been allegations in terms of vote buying. What is it that the commission has done and what is it that the commission is doing? One, we decided to change the template and configuration of our polling units to make it impossible for people to go into the voting compartment with electronic gadgets and to prevent them from showing how they have voted. That's one of the things we did. The second thing we did was that under the auspices of what we call the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, we had conversation, we had meetings, we had partnership with the EFCC, ICPC, and other security agencies. And they agreed to deploy to some of the polling units to check this specter and incident of vote buying. But beyond that, this commission, the Independent National Electoral Commission, has made it very clear that one, that this commission does not have the capacity to prosecute electoral offenders.
Okay.
This is because for you to do successful prosecution, you have to do arrest. You have to do investigation before prosecution. And we feel that we are burdened with the issue of conducting elections and that the issue of prosecuting electoral offenders is just a distraction. So we have gone to the National Assembly to canvass for the setting up of an Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal that will, from the onset, from the beginning, take charge of the issue of arrest, the issue of investigation, and the issue of prosecution of electoral offenders, so that we can break the cycle of impunity in this country. Because people engage in electoral malfeasance because some of them believe that they can do it and there's no consequence. And the moment people believe that there's no consequence for electoral infraction, they will continue. So if we have this Electoral Offences Commission and Tribunal, it will even have the power to set up mobile courts on election day to deal here, there, and then with some of the issues around the electoral offenses.
But will that be possible, considering the fact that you're still going back to the same people who are accused of perpetrating vote buying on the said election days? Is that, I'm struggling with that. I don't know if that will ever materialize.
Well, I believe that the Nigerian people have the capacity to make some agencies of government to work, depending on the people's vigilance, depending on the level of engagement with the electoral with such an agency. I believe that where the commission is today is based on the vigilance of the Nigerian people, is based on the advocacy of the Nigerian people, is based on what the Nigerian people have been saying that they want out of the electoral process. So they have been nudging the commission towards gradual and graduated improvement. So I also believe that if such an agency is set up, the Nigerian people will provide the template for the functioning of that agency and remove such agency from political interference and make it truly independent law enforcement agency that can deal with issue of electoral offenses and the issue of electoral offenders. And so to answer your question directly, there is a limit to what the commission can do in terms of electoral offenses. One thing people forget and one thing people do not realize is that on election day, there are 4 ad hoc staff in each polling unit. The presiding officer is a core member. The assistant presiding officer 1, 2, and 3 are possibly students of federal tertiary institutions. They cannot be conducting elections and also be arresting electoral offenders. And at the principles of the polling unit, you have unarmed security agents at the polling unit. The moment you do an arrest at the level of the polling unit, there's a possibility that there may be breakdown of law and order.
Okay.
So if you want to even carry out an arrest, you have to carry out the arrest with sense. So there's so much that needs to be done. In some countries, people vote and then put their ballot papers inside an envelope before putting it in the ballot box to prevent people from knowing how they voted. But in this country, what we operate is what we call open secret ballot. You do your thumbprint in secret and then you vote in the open. Because people want to see. People can only trust what they see with their eyes. And so I think that we are not where we want to be in terms of breaking the cycle of electoral impunity. But I believe that with the level of attention Nigerian people are paying to the polling units, that there's a possibility that something must be done or will be done. But we must focus our attention on the political parties and their candidates who are the vote buyers. And we must also find ways and means of explaining to our people that PVC they are holding, that vote, that ballot paper they are holding is a potent weapon with which they can ensure good governance in the country. that that PVC and that particular ballot paper has value. When people realize the value of these two instruments, they will be very, very reluctant to say their votes. Because the politicians are relying on the vulnerabilities of our people, on the poverty of our people, in order to corrupt them. And so we need more civic education, we need more electoral education. We also need to do more advocacy to get our people up to speed with modern realities and for them to understand that they can guarantee their today and their future through their votes.
All right, and so I will need to ask this before we move on to other issues. Thankfully, Nigerians successfully got what they want, and of course, your commission as well got what we want by having the electronic transmission of results enshrined in the Electoral Act, which is a big step forward. Now, we have from now until about a couple of months down the line, till February, when the presidential election will be coming up. Is there a possibility that some of those areas where, as a commission, you are not comfortable with, or Nigerians are not comfortable with, is there a possibility that some other amendments can also be made before the 2023 general election? Is there a possibility that? Because for some people, they feel that this is probably the end. The Constitution, the Electoral Act may not be amended again before the election, but is there a possibility for any sort of amendment before the 2023 presidential election?
The Electoral Act we have now is quite progressive. The Electoral Act we have now can guarantee the conduct of free, fair, and transparent election. As an electoral management body, we need some level of certainty in terms of the electoral legal framework. We do not want a situation where people will go into the election, where the commission will go into the election, political parties will go into the election, civil society groups and organizations, not knowing whether there is certainty in the electoral legal framework. I believe that we have a very progressive legislation. We cannot solve all the problems of our electoral process through legislation. So the Electoral Act we have today can guarantee the conduct of free, fair, and transparent election. And the Commission is happy with the product. And the Commission was part of the individuals and organizations that made very serious input into this, into the electoral legal framework. So I think that we don't need any further amendment to the electoral legal framework, and that we should just go into the election relying on the existing Electoral Act 2022.
All right. Well, I've been having a chat here with Festus Okoye, the INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. This is The Conversation. We'll be back after this break.
In today's world, they say that a child has certain rights, even in a house.
Yes.
So even if I give you a phone, I can't ask you to say, I want to see what you're doing on your phone.
Now we need to come to this point to know that I am your daddy. I'm here to guide you. I will not live your life for you. But if you appreciate that I came to this point to become your daddy and you trust me enough, we should be able to work this out together. If I say this is not good for you, ask me why. I will tell you why. And if you don't understand why now, wait for some time. You will understand later. There are some things I didn't understand that my daddy did, but I understand them fully now.
Welcome back. This is The Conversation. And once again, my name is Aonduna Inga. We've been having a chat here with Festus Okoye. He's the INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. If you're just joining us, we've spoken extensively about previous elections and how the Commission is prepared going into the 2023 general elections. But you cannot vote if you don't have a PVC. As it stands right now on the Commission's website, you have 84,004,084 persons who have registered. You know, at the time we were even confused with the figures. Is this progressive enough? Looking at these numbers of people who have registered for PVCs, you know, the Nigerian population is estimated to be over 200 million, even though we don't have the exact figures. But is this encouraging?
I think it's a realistic figure. Going into the 2019 general election, we had 84 million registered voters. Thereafter, we have done further elections, by-elections and so on. Going into this CVR that we are in now, we are going into it with almost 85 million registered voters. Now, what we have done as an electoral management body is to ensure that we have an electronic voters register that prevents a situation where every electoral cycle we conduct fresh voters registration. So the implication is that if you have ever registered before, we have your name in our database. So you don't need to register again. During this particular period, what we are doing is what we call the continuous voters registration exercise. And this exercise is meant for those who have never registered before in their lives, and also those who have turned 18. These are the two categories of persons that are obligated to come forward during this CVR. And we started this CVR on the 28th day of June 2021. That was when we launched the online pre-registration for new registrants.
Yeah.
And then in July, we now started the physical registration. There are two issues involved here. The first issue involved is that in our online portal, we have 7 services. The online pre-registration for new voters. These persons can go to our online portal, key in all their information, and then thereafter visit any of our state or local government offices for us to capture their biometrics. Then for those who want to do transfer, those who have moved from one state to the other, or from one local government to another local government, or from one registration area to another registration area, they can also go online and carry out their transfer.
Okay.
These are people who already registered. So they don't need to go and do any further biometrics because we already have their biometrics in our database. So they only do transfer.
Okay.
For those who have lost their PVCs, or those whose PVCs are defaced, they can also go online and also complain, let me use the word, that they have lost their PVCs.
Okay.
We will capture their data and then we print new PVCs for them. They don't need to register afresh. For those whose names have not been properly spelled, or whose dates of birth have not been properly captured, they can go online and also do review. So they don't need to visit any registration center. But for those who do not have the services of a computer, those who do not have smartphones and so on, can also go and complain physically, or go and carry out their registration physically. We started this registration in our state and local government offices. And as I pointed out, we have 774 local government areas in Nigeria. We did this on security grounds. Before we rolled out, we had series of meetings with the political parties. We had series of meetings with the media. We had series of meetings with civil society groups and organizations, and also meetings with security agencies. We were advised to move to our state offices and start from there, move to the local governments on security grounds.
Okay.
And then thereafter, we do what they call roll out and roll back. If we roll out and there are security challenges, we roll back to our state and local government offices. And that's exactly what we have been, we've been doing. At the last count,
yes,
we have deployed a total of 2,673 IVED machines, including fingerprint scanners and thermal printers, to make sure that we capture as many Nigerians as possible. Unfortunately, since we rolled out, sometimes our registration officers register one single individual a day. But in the last 2 weeks of the end of the voters registration exercise, because we said this thing will end on the 30th day of June 2022, there has been what we call an unprecedented surge of persons coming to come and register. And that has created so much challenge for the commission.
So are we going to see a case where there'll be an extension? I think that is one. There have been rumors already that the commission has extended the continuous voter registration. So are we going to see that? I mean, Nigerians want this.
Let me put it this way. When the surge started, the Commission deployed an additional 209 IVET machines to the areas of acute pressure. We deployed to Lagos, the Federal Capital Territory, Kano, the 5 states of the Southeast, and Oyo State, in order to obviate this acute pressure. Now, the Federal High Court just made an order saying that the Independent National Electoral Commission should not stop the voters' registration process on the 30th or any other date pending the determination of a motion on notice filed by a civil society group. And that particular motion is coming up on the 29th day of June. And so on the 29th day of June, the Commission will go and explain its position to the court. But I want to assure you, and I want to assure the Nigerian people, that this present Commission will do whatever it takes to add value to the electoral process. And this present Commission will not deliberately or otherwise disenfranchise any Nigerian who wants to register as a voter. We recognize the fact that people are trooping out to the registration centers because there's a new resurgence, there's a new confidence amongst the Nigerian people that this commission has the capacity and has the courage to make their votes count.
Okay.
And we are not going to take that for granted. So to answer your question directly, there is a possibility that this commission will extend the voters' registration process. But for now, we have decided that it is, as a constitutional body, we are going to obey the order made by the Federal High Court, asking us not to stop the voters' registration until the 29th day of June, when the matter will be heard. Let me also say this, that the surge we are witnessing should not really happen. This surge is occurring because people who have registered before are still trooping to the registration centers to go and register afresh. We carried out the first and second phase of registration between the 28th day of June 2021 and the 14th day of January 2022. When we did what we call deduplication and cleaning up of the register, we found out that 46% of the new registrants were double and multiple registrants, and we had to remove them. So if you have ever registered before, you don't need to go and register afresh.
So by
if
removing,
you register afresh, it becomes invalid.
By removing them, have those names been completely expunged from your registry, or just that second attempt at registering? How do you mean exactly?
What we did is that the second registration was declared invalid.
Okay.
But we still left their first registration.
Okay.
Despite the fact that they have violated the intent and provisions of the law.
But do these Nigerians know? That is another concern. Do they know?
Some of them do. A majority of them know that they are not supposed to engage in double or multiple registration. But you know, one thing we realize is that some Nigerians want to register twice. The PVC is acceptable in the banks for purposes of opening an account, and they also use it for transactional purposes. So they have two PVCs. They keep one for voting, and then they use one for the everyday transaction. That's not the purpose of our PVC. Our PVC is meant solely, purposely, fundamentally, and exclusively for purposes of voting, and not for purposes of other economic and day-to-day transactions.
And that begs the question that why do we have to go through, if I'm going to the bank and I can easily get my, my ATM machine on the very day I, open an account, why is it so different with the PVC? Why would I have to wait? And why does it have to go through such a process before I actually get a PVC? What's so special or spectacular about the PVC?
Well, the PVC has potency and it has power and it has value. And because the PVC has potency, has value, and has power, people want to have it because they don't know what may likely happen tomorrow. Now, if with the NSAS protest and the new resurgence among the Nigerian youths, you can see that even in our online portal, 70% of the new registrants and 70% of those who are using the portal are young men and women between the age of 18 and 34. And I think that that is very positive for this country. If they register and show up on election day, they can change the template of governance. But if they register and then on election day they do not show up, rather than watching movies and playing football, the implication is that the old generation will still determine the fate of this country. Our hope is that the new generation of Nigerians who are trooping to the registration centers to go and register will show up on election day, because they are the ones who have the intellectual power, they are the ones who have the rational means to decipher the manifesto and programs and policies of the political parties. They are the ones who can also influence the older generation in terms of the political party that can better protect their interests, or the candidates that can better protect their interests. So our appeal is that the young people of this country should make efforts to register. Not only registering, they should also make efforts to obtain their PVCs. Not only obtaining their PVCs, but showing up on election day and being patient, being calm, being resilient, and also being courageous in terms of making sure that they exercise their democratic franchise.
We'll go on a break, and when we come back, the conversation will continue. Stay with us.
People who say, don't beat a child. And as a pastor and a leader in church, there are parents who say, don't touch my child. Leave him. So where do we draw the line?
Discipline, especially for teenagers, it's always good to allow them face consequences. So your teenager does something that is wrong, you yell, you hit, and then you do the thing for the child. They have not learned anything. You understand? Your child, maybe you have said to them, greet adults when they come into the home. You know, somebody comes in, they don't greet, they are rude. You hit them, you slap them, and then you now greet, oh, sorry, ma, good morning, welcome. The child doesn't learn. A child forgets his book, his ticket or something. Let him miss the flight. Let him not do the assignment. Let him, when you hit them, it's a quick fix. So they don't feel it. If your child misplaces something and you have already said to that child, be careful, be more careful. Let him go without it. To feel it, it has to be personal. That's how the child gets the discipline.
Welcome back. This is The Conversation. And once again, my name is Aonduna Inga. All right, so I am particularly concerned about the figures you mentioned, the percentage of numbers of people who have unknowingly, I would like to say, indulged in double registration. That's about 47%. That is quite alarming if you ask me. Now, besides that, I also would like to say that I'm concerned about one other thing. We have a lot of our students who are back in their homes right now. And at some point, ASU might decide to call off the strike. And they will have to go back to school. And I don't think ASU or universities will close down or stop their academic activities to allow students go back home to vote during the elections. I don't know if your commission is putting this into consideration as well. You have the issue of the double registrants on one hand, which I see as a major problem. And like I said, are you expunging those names totally? And how are you dealing with the issue of people who may travel eventually after you've closed registration?
Well, let me emphasize that we already have over 84 million Nigerians in our database who are properly registered as voters in our elections. The CVR that is currently ongoing is not for every Nigerian. The CVR is for Nigerians who have never registered in their lives. It is also meant for those who have attained the age of 18. These are the classes of people we want to capture during this CVR. Those who have registered before and whose names are in our database, they don't need to register afresh. If you want to do transfer from one state to the other, or from one local government to the other, or from one registration area to the other, you don't have to do a fresh registration. You only carry out transfer of your registration. So we will now domicile you in a new polling unit, in a new registration area, in a new local government, and in a new state. If you have lost your permanent voter's card, you don't need to register afresh. The only thing we do is that we print a fresh PVC for you. If your PVC is defaced, you don't need to register afresh. If there's misspelling in your name, you don't need to register afresh. If you register afresh, the implication is that you have engaged in double or multiple registration, in which case we will expunge your new registration and still leave your previous registration as valid. That's exactly what we are doing at present. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of our educational system, sometimes students in federal tertiary institutions are disenfranchised, knowingly or unknowingly. And I give you an example. We just finished the conduct of the Ekiti governorship election. There are students in the Federal University of Technology in Ado Ekiti that registered to vote, but they are at home. So the implication is that in this voting process, they were not factored in. They couldn't have voted. Now, some of them have also graduated and have left Ekiti State, and are in a different place altogether. So those ones can transfer their registration. But the implication also is that when as a cause of e-strike, some of the students who have transferred their registration from Ekiti to their hometown and now back to school will not be in a position to vote during the election. And that is very, very disruptive. But this present commission is also working towards a situation where we are going to maybe have electronic voting machines in future, or where we may even have what we call internet voting in future, so that wherever you are, you can vote from the comfort of your home, and you can vote from wherever wherever you are. But my advice, especially to the young people of this country, is that the future of this nation is in their hands, and they can only effect a change in the future of this country by showing up. In other words, they have to make the efforts to obtain their permanent voters cards. They have to also make the efforts to get these voters cards into their custody when the permanent voters cards are printed.
Okay.
Not only that, they have to also show up on election day. And showing up on election day means that, one, they have to go to the polling unit on time. Two, they have to be patient with whatever is going on at the polling unit. Three, they have to persevere at the level of the polling unit. And four, they have to also display courage in staying behind despite challenges at the polling unit. And five, they have to make efforts to vote. It is only by so doing that they can make a difference in the life of this nation. We want people who are knowledgeable. We want people who are intellectually minded. We want people who understand the dynamics of the modern economy, the dynamics of the political situation we are in, who understand the technological evolution of this country and the movement of society, to be the ones who will decide what is going on today and who will decide what will go on tomorrow. A situation where some of our young people just stay behind on election day and allow the older generation of Nigerians to make the decision on the direction of this country does not augur well for us as a nation and as a people. So I want to encourage young Nigerians, wherever they are, to show up on election day. It is only by showing up, it's only by realizing the potency of the PVC, the value of the PVC, and the power of the PVC that we can change the template of governance in this country. And so I encourage them to show up on election day.
All right, we'll go on a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at some other aspects of the electoral process as well. Stay with us.
My name is Mr. Sistus Dikocha. I'm here to get my voter's card, PVC.
I'm here to get my PVC.
My name is Uche Chimdi. I'm here to register for my PVC. I was thinking I was going to get a card because I already registered online.
My name is Anita. I actually came to do a transfer. I found out that the online transfer I actually did was valid, so there was even no need for me to come here.
My name is Ebuka. I'm here to get PVC. The experience is hectic today, man.
It is an incongruous that we have converged here since 5 o'clock. We are not even Believing to get the PVC today.
I didn't expect this crowd. It was a whole lot of struggle to, get to this stage, but thank God I'm able to do it.
I'm here to register for my private voters card, my PVC. It's been stressful, to be honest, because we've been here for a very long time and we haven't been able to get it.
I'm here to get my PVC. You can see everywhere is crowded, and a lot of people, the youth they came out in numbers, to make sure that everything is being normalized. So that's why we're here.
Quite stressful. I was here, I think, 2 days ago to get my PVC, but I was only given a ticket to return here today. I would like to say I like the energy we are putting up right now. We are all coming out in our capacity to vote. We've understood that we actually have the power. We don't have to be dumb-sided or blind-sided to believe that the power belongs to the politicians. We have the power, so now we've realized it. We are willing to take it, and that's why we are here. So let's keep at it. We'll definitely win.
Welcome back, and it's still the conversation. I'm here with Festus Okoye. He is the INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. He has spoken extensively about issues concerning the current continuous voter registration and a whole lot more. And at this point in time, we're also going to be looking at a very critical aspect of the electoral process as well. Yes, they may not be directly involved in it, but yet we're concerned about the general security of the elections. People will often say if there's no security, then perhaps a lot of Nigerians may not be encouraged to go out there and vote or participate fully in the electoral process. So, Festus Okoye, let's get to the issue of security. I recall that a couple of months ago, we've had issues of INEC facilities coming down under fire and then being attacked. As a matter of fact, at some point, we saw a gory video where a supposed INEC official was shot point blank. Now, when you look at all of these things, we also are concerned as Nigerians for your safety as INEC officials as well. But it also sends out some sort of mixed feelings. How are we prepared when security is compromised? So the question is, what is the synergy? What's the working relationship between INEC and our security agencies going ahead or moving into 2023 general elections?
Well, we meet with the various security agencies at a national level under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission is the chair, while the co-chair is the National Security Advisor. It's also made up of the Inspector General of Police, the Director of DSS, and the heads of all the other security agencies. At the state level, the Resident Electoral Commissioner chairs the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, together with the Commissioner of Police, who is the co-chair. At the local government level, the electoral officer chairs the committee, and it's also made up of the divisional police officer for that particular local government. We have had series of meetings, and our message to the security agencies has been degrade as much as possible the current security situation in the country to enable us to deploy and deploy well. We cannot really deploy and be effective when we are not too sure about the security of our officials and also about the security of our materials. There are so many Nigerians in the IDP camps, and these Nigerians are also entitled to vote during election. So we have established an IDP policy that will enable us to conduct election even in IDP camps. So in some of the IDP camps, we are going to recreate their registration areas and also recreate their polling units in the IDP camps. When you are running for your life, the last thing you remember is your permanent voter's card. So we realize the fact that so many of them have lost their permanent voter's cards. And so we're also registering them in the IDP camps, especially those who have lost their permanent voter's cards. We are reprinting their voter's cards. And so we are going to give them an opportunity of exercising their democratic franchise. Going into the election, we want Nigerians to go into the 2023 general election with confidence. We want Nigerians to go into the election with courage. We want Nigerians to go into the electoral process without any form of inhibition whatsoever. Based on this, we are also doing what we call our own threat assessment in every local government, in every polling unit, in every registration area, so that we can also advise the security agencies on our own assessment of the security situation in different parts of the country. They have assured us that they will be ready, and the polling units will be ready, and the local governments will be ready for the 2023 general election. We do not want Nigerians to go and vote and die. We want Nigerians to go out to the polling units and come back with a pleasant voting experience. And that is our focus. And that's exactly what we are going to do. And that is what we intend to achieve. And so we keep on liaising with the various security agencies in terms of making sure that potential threats to the conduct of the 2023 general election is effectively neutralized.
All right. So, interestingly, while you were answering that question, you made mention of INEC materials, and then it just struck me that INEC may not have a place to keep its sensitive materials after all, due to certain political activities in the country. So, what plans are INEC, or what plan does INEC have in motion to ensure that voter materials are safe and are uncompromised before the elections next year?
Well, the Independent National Electoral Commission is a public trust. And because it's a public trust, we pay attention to the feelings of Nigerians. And we also pay attention to the sensibilities of Nigerians. And that was why, for the Ekiti governorship election, we used the Nigerian Air Force to fly our sensitive materials to Akure Airport. And then from Akure Airport, the materials were transported to our office in Ado Ekiti under heavy security, where they were quarantined, so to say, before they were distributed to the various local governments. We are going to do the same thing for the Osun governorship election. But a general election is a bigger space, it's a bigger venture. For the general election, for instance, if we are through with the continuous voters registration process, there is a possibility that the total number of registered voters in Nigeria may be 95 million. The implication is that for the presidential election, we are going to print 95 million ballot papers. Then for senatorial election, we are going to print 95 million ballot papers. For House of Representative election, 94 million ballot papers. Now we have 28 governorship elections coming up. We assume that maybe we'll print 70 million ballot papers for governorship election, and then 95 million ballot papers for House of Assembly election. This excludes resource sheets and other sensitive materials that we require for the conduct of the election. That is huge. So what we intend to do is that after the Osun governorship election, we are going to hold a high-level meeting with officials of the Central Bank of Nigeria to see whether there's a possibility of resolving some of the challenges that led to this present impasse. If we are unable to resolve the challenges, if we are unable to get assurances as to the safety of our materials and as to the security of our materials, the implication is that we have to look for a different logistic pathway on what to do with our sensitive materials. But conversations have not taken place. The Commission has not taken a decision on what to do in relation to the 2023 general election. But that conversation will definitely take place. And we assure Nigerians that we will not in any way compromise the security and safety of our sensitive electoral materials.
Well, First Adesoye, this will be a good time to bring the conversation to an end. But in 1 minute, I'd like you to tell Nigerians who are out there, who have weathered the storm against all odds, have decided to, have all of a sudden become very interested in the electoral process. I know you've said this repeatedly, that the Commission is determined to have free, fair, and credible elections. But then for some other persons, they still wonder, if the federal government pays the bill, why would you want to do anything that is contrary to what the federal government wants? But then I want you to assure Nigerians once again that going into 2023, every Nigerian's election, vote will count.
Well, I want to assure Nigerians that in relation to the continuous voters registration exercise, that the foundation of any electoral process, the credibility of an electoral process depends on the credibility of the voters register. So we want a voters register that is credible. We want a voters register that people will have confidence in. We want a voters register that contains the names of genuine Nigerians who will be ready to vote. And that is why we want Nigerians to approach the continuous voters registration exercise from the point of view of the fact that we need a credible voters register going into the 2023 general election. Secondly, this President Commission has the courage. This President Commission has the determination. This President Commission has the staying power to conduct free, fair, transparent, and inclusive election. What we need from Nigerians is partnership. What we need from Nigerians is patience. What we need from Nigerians is a sense of understanding of the enormity of the work we need to do. On our own part, we promise the Nigerian people that their votes will count and that this commission will not do anything or take any action that will compromise the integrity of the electoral process and the credibility of the electoral process. We have the staying power to give Nigerians a very good election, and that is what we are determined to do, and we will not fail Nigerians.
Thank you so much, Festus Okoye Esquire, INEC Commissioner for Information and Voter Education. Thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough for making this time out to speak with us on voter literacy and citizens' responsibility, exercising your civic rights as a Nigerian. That is the size of the program, the conversation today with Sola Adesoye. We'll be back with another exciting edition of the program, but until then, every one of you, just like it has been said repeatedly on the program today, get involved in the process, get interested, and get ready to vote in 2023. It's bye-bye from us.
Hello. That's what I said. I don't want you to look at me as a
The conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life, links you with the greatest minds around the world, and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation on the social media channels showing on your screen.